you spent the rest of your life doing nothing other than what I'm about to show you, then you could retire with upwards of $6 million. In fact, if you make this one decision, it will put you ahead of 99% of people on the planet. We're talking about found money here, like reaching into an old pair of jeans and finding a $20 bill kind of money. So in this video, I'm going to show you what it is, how to implement it step by step, and the common trap people always fall into, which wrecks this whole thing. So what is it? Well, it's this. Never have a car payment. Now you're probably thinking it can't be that easy. Well, let me assure you, it's not just me talking out of my ass here. We've got George Kamel, a millionaire, and Dave Ramsey's right-hand man backing us up here.
You see, car payments are highway robbery to the tune of $6 million.
It still sounds ridiculous, I know. So let's start with breaking down how a car payment costs you this much money. Having a $6 million net worth would put you in the top 1% of Americans. But for most people, having $6 million sounds about as impossible as driving a car blindfolded.
Drive.
I get it. With student and credit card debt at all-time highs, home prices being out of control, interest rates rising, and salaries not keeping up with it all, that $6 million feels more like a fairy tale than a financial goal. Despite these challenges, if we don't come up with creative ways to save money, we may never be able to retire. But the key is getting wealthy while still enjoying our lives. And one of the ways you can do this is to just eliminate your car payment. So here's the math.
As of today, the average new car payment is $717. The average used car payment, $563. And if you don't believe how much wealth that car payment is costing you, let's run the numbers. So let's take that $717 car payment for the 2023 Ford F-150 that you can afford. Well, what if you stop the cycle of getting a new car and a new car payment every few years during your adult life, and instead you invest that monthly payment into mutual funds in the stock market from age 22 to 62? Let's see what you have. So I've got my investment calculator up right here. Current age 22, age you plan to retire 62. I've got $0 to my name. I'm gonna start investing $717 with an assumed annual return of 11%. Hope you like the freaking truck, Tim McGraw, because a lifetime of payments just cost you over $6 million. And yes, I realize that math assumes an 11% average annual rate of return. That number is based on the historical track record of the S&P 500, which is considered the benchmark index for the U.S. stock market. And from 1928 through 2022, the S&P 500 had an average annual return of 11.51%.
And it's actually really simple. All you have to do is trade in your car for a bicycle.
I want to ride my bicycle.
Just kidding. I'll explain how to eliminate your car payment in a minute, but just imagine if at 62 years old, you had $6 million. You would be able to pay yourself an income of $240,000 per year without ever having to worry about running out of money. In other words, if I came to you and offered you a job with a salary of $240,000 a year, and I told you that you don't have to work a single minute for this money, but you're never allowed to have a car payment, would you find a way to eliminate your car payment? I know I would, and I'm guessing if you're watching this video, then you would too. But what if you aren't 22? Well, even if you're not still wearing a graduation cap, here's the amount of additional wealth you would generate by eliminating your car payment for different periods of time.
Now let's take a look at what this can do for your wealth if you follow this advice for your adult life. If you invest the money you would have had as a car payment, that's $717, into good mutual funds in the stock market, here's what that can turn into with that 11% rate of return. In just 10 years, you'd have over $150,000 in that account. In 20 years, you'd have over $600,000. In 30 years, you'd have over $2 million. And in 40 years, from age 22 to 62, that mutual fund would have over $6 million.
So even if you only eliminated your car payment for 10 short years, you would still generate an additional $150,000, which would still put you in the top 17% of all millennials. But I know what you're thinking. Even if it was possible to buy a car in cash, it would be about as unreliable and more expensive to maintain than your last relationship. Don't worry though, because I'll show you the true cost difference in owning a new car versus a used car in a minute. But let's first look at how you can buy a car in cash in the first place. So how do you step by step buy a car in cash? First, let me tell you how I did it. Picture this. I was 21, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I bought my first car for 10 grand. Now, it wasn't exactly a Ferrari, more like a slightly used toaster on wheels, but hey, it got me from point A to point B, and that's all that matters, right?
Right.
Now, all jokes aside, it was at the time a 7-year-old Toyota Camry with 96,000 miles on it, and it's the car I still drive to this day. Because I started early, I was able to save and invest way over $717 per month. But what if you don't have the luxury of starting as early as I did? Well, here's what George recommends.
So go with me here. What if in an alternate universe or current reality, you bought a cheaper used car that you budget for, just to get around for 10 months, a cheap beater car. And that way, you can have something to drive while you save for a better one. Then, if you take that $717 car payment that you would have spent on a car loan, and you put that into a savings account every month, after 10 months, you'll have saved well over $7,000. Now add that to the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 grand you can get for that old beater car you're driving, and you'd have well over $8,500 to buy a new to you car in cash. Now, this is not going to be your dream car with heated seats and Australian Siri, but that's a major upgrade in just 10 months without owing the bank a dime in interest. We're just getting started here. Let's keep this ball moving. If you keep consistently putting away that $717 for 10 more months, what would you have? Another $7 grand to put towards a car. And in today's current car market, you could probably sell your current $8,500 vehicle for about the same price you paid for it 10 months ago. Meaning you now have more than $15,000 to pay for another new-to-you car just 20 months after this whole process started. That's less than 2 years. Now, if you're keeping score, that's you, $15,600, car debt, 0. We like it that way.
So even if you don't have the money today, in a little less than 2 short years, you can follow George's recommendation and put yourself in a position to no longer have a car payment. And if you still don't think $15,000 is enough for the car you want to drive, then you can do this for 10 more months and end up with closer to $23,000 for a used car. In fact, you can keep doing this over and over until you've got the car of your dreams. It's like a never-ending cycle of car buying excitement. And once you do that, you can take the money you no longer need for a car payment and invest it to escape the rat race and give yourself financial freedom. But before you go rushing off to buy your next used car, let's talk about reliability. Because let's face it, nobody wants to be stuck on the side of the road with a car that's more temperamental than a toddler in a candy store. Alright, let's settle the age-old debate. New car versus used car. It's like choosing between a hot dog with all the toppings or a salad with extra kale.
That's gross.
But will a used car paid for in cash actually cost you more money in the long run versus a new car with a loan? In my personal experience, the answer is no. People thought I was crazy for buying a car with 96,000 miles on it. But 5 years later, it's at 197,000 miles, and outside of changing the tires, a few brake pads, and regular oil changes, I've only had to make one unexpected repair, which cost about $400. So I know without a doubt, this was the cheaper route. But instead of just relying on my experience, let's look at the numbers to find the truth. There are 3 main factors that differentiate used cars from new cars: the purchase price, depreciation, and maintenance costs. The average new car costs more than $37,000, and the average used car costs around $20,000. The average depreciation on a new car in the first 5 years is about 60%. So if you bought a $37,000 car, it would be worth about $14,800 in 5 years, meaning you would have lost $22,000 in depreciation. If you purchased a 5-year-old used car, it would have already lost 60% of its value, and over the next 5 years on average, it will only lose another 20% of its value. So if you bought a $20,000 used car, it would be worth $16,000 in 5 years, meaning you only lost about $4,000. And lastly, the average maintenance cost on a new car is roughly 7.5 cents per mile. So if you drive 75,000 miles over 5 years, you can expect to pay about $5,625 in maintenance on a new car. The average maintenance cost on a used car is roughly 11.5 cents per mile. If you drive the same mileage over 5 years, you can expect to pay about $8,625 in maintenance. So for all the naysayers that hate on the idea of buying a used car, you're absolutely right. There will be higher maintenance expenses from owning a used car than a new car. But when you take into account all 3 of these factors, you would pay on average a total of $64,625 for a new car and about $32,625 for a used car. And that's not including any interest on loans, meaning on average, You would save $32,000 by buying a used car versus a new car. So buying a new car just to save money on maintenance is like buying a private jet so you don't have to wait in line at TSA. And if that's still not enough for all you skeptics out there, AutoTrader recently released an article explaining that cars can last up to 200 to 300,000 miles and for 15 to 22 years. And that's why the concept that you have to buy a new car every 3 to 5 years is the common trap that most of society falls into that wrecks this whole plan. At the end of the day, trying to build your wealth is like pedaling a bike up a steep hill. In the beginning, you have to put a lot of effort in. You'll likely have a bunch of debt, a relatively low income, and will be struggling to consistently save money. However, if you just eliminate your car payment, you could generate enough savings to propel yourself to the top of the hill. But if you want to put in even less effort and ditch that bike for a motorcycle to climb that steep hill, then you need to save your first $100,000 as soon as possible. So watch this video next for my ultimate guide to saving your first $100,000.